Hello, and welcome to this video course on WordPress on-page SEO. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Brian. This is our first lesson, and today we're going to talk about the mindset because when starting this course, if you are in the wrong mindset, then even if you try to implement a few things from this course, it's ultimately going to hold you back. Things will not run smooth, or at least not the way you want them to run. In the past, we've seen that a specific mindset holds business owners back, and we don't want to see that happen to you. We want to see you succeed as much as possible. So, here's the right mindset. People make the assumption that every single SEO technique and rule change rapidly so that what works 10 years ago doesn't work now. Yes, to a certain extent. Search engine optimization does change rapidly every single month. However, at the same time, the basic fundamentals that Google and other search engines look for still hold true today. That still work today. So let me repeat that. Not everything has changed. In fact, the core of SEO is not changed. That's your mindset. Learn the basics and you're good to go. Because SEO might have changed, but if you get into the wrong mindset of, everything changes, everything that used to work 10 years ago doesn't work now, then you're putting yourself in a dangerous position simply because you'll forget the basics. You're forgetting the core. Now, there are a lot of basic fundamentals and SEO rules, but we're really going to focus on 5 factors. And I'll talk more about these later down the road. And we're going to be focusing on these factors that haven't changed, or if they have changed, they've only changed very slightly in the last decade. So, make sure that you're not in the wrong mindset. Otherwise, it will prevent you from actually moving forward. Alright, so here's what you're going to need. You're going to need to have a WordPress site. If you don't have a WordPress site, these fundamentals still hold true as well, but most of what I'm going to be showing you is how to implement these factors into your current WordPress site. You're also going to need to have a general keyword, a keyword that you want to rank on. And then, of course, you want to have a list of specific keywords related to that general keyword. And the reason why you want to have these in hand is because you're going to use these in your body tags, your title tags, your metadata tags, and even your images alt tag text. So, you're going to need access to content, which is a written text and or images to create your posts. To implement all that, you need to have a live WordPress site. Now, if you don't have all this information right now, that's fine, but you're definitely going to need it eventually. So, that's it for now. With that said, let's move on to our next lesson. Hello, and welcome back. This is video number 2. In this video, we're going to talk about the main focus. You see, because WordPress on-page SEO is such a broad term that literally covers a lot of areas of your website, both the front end, such as the tags, the content, and all of that, and the back end, like sitemaps, the XML sitemap, and all that. Really, we need to discuss the main focus of this course. It is actually to help you make your front end of your WordPress site more SEO friendly. That's our main focus. And what that means is we're going to focus specifically on how to make your overall WordPress site's structure, your posts, your pages more search engine friendly. So the goal is that when Google and other search engine robots come to your site, they will know straight away what your site is all about. Now, by robots, what I mean is that Google usually will send out computers, which are called bots, and they'll come to your site and scan it and try to figure out what your site is all about. The truth of the matter is that too many people skip over this step because it is an exciting task to do, but it is also a crucial step for success. But most people are too focused on external SEO. The reality is that there are a lot of front-end factors that you must do on all of your sites. So, by skipping out on these fundamental steps and just focusing on things like backlinking, you're really going to miss out on a lot because when Google comes to your site, and if your site is not search engine friendly, and you've just got a lot of backlinks, then yes, you do have a lot of votes that your site might be good. But at the same time, it's like, okay, this is a popular site, but what is the site all about? You will confuse search engines. So, even though this step seems basic, it's very often much of a skipped step. However, once you get in the habit of implementing on-page SEO factors, you'll actually be ahead of most of your competitors. And the good news is that most people don't do on-page SEO. And if you're doing this, you're going to get ahead of them, right? So keep in mind, in this course, we're not going to focus on backlinking or any external SEO strategies. Instead, we will focus on internal SEO. So now you have a clear idea of what we're going to talk about in this course. Let's move on to our next lesson and discuss the 5 important factors that all of your posts, your pages, and your content, your tags, your URL structures should contain. Please follow me. Hello, and welcome to lesson number 3. And today, we're going to talk about the 5 important factors that every WordPress SEO needs. Today, we'll have a quick overview of the 5 factors, and then, of course, the next few videos will dive into every single one of these factors. But before we can really discuss them in depth, you need to have a broader bird's eye view of them. So, before we jump into the 5 factors that your WordPress site should have, or even your non-WordPress site should have, as they'll definitely work on those too, it's important to know a few things first. The first thing is you need to have a general idea of your main keyword, the one you're going to rank on. And number 2, you need to have a list of specific keywords that branch off of that main keyword. Now, don't worry if you don't have that now, as I'm going to give you step-by-step techniques to help you figure that out. Now, another thing I want to mention here is in general, a lot of people commit this big mistake of implementing these 5 factors without a clear plan of attack. And that's why I'm breaking things down for you and dedicated the whole lesson for it. There's a reason for everything, you know. So remember, if there's no clear plan and the website owner simply creates content in an area with little or no traffic, and then they're not ranking on any specific keyword, it's just them to blame. While committing this mistake, they might even be ranking on keywords that have really nothing to do with their website. And this is a lot of time wasted traffic, right? So, that's why I'm not jumping straight into details first, and instead breaking things down so that it becomes clear and you can see the plan from bird's view. So, you will have a better chance to succeed. Now, we're not going to focus, like I said, on keyword research, but we do recommend that you check out the suggested keywords. Where can you find suggested keywords? Well, Google has what we call suggested keywords embedded into their search. Amazon.com also has a list of suggested keywords. This is super easy feature. You can literally find the main keyword and a list of specific keywords within a few seconds with this system. So here's what I want you to do. You can do this by going to Google, for example, and typing in your general keyword. So you'll notice that when you do a search, Google will suggest keywords. Now, in order for the keywords to appear in the suggested box, the keywords should be gone through a ton of search for those keywords. So, in other words, as a high volume of people searching for this keyword, when I type in the same keywords, for example, let me search for survival kit. Then I get other Google suggested keywords like survival kit lists, ideas, survival kit Amazon, food, and backpack. Now, there's another way of doing this. If you type in the keyword and you press enter, then what's going to happen when you scroll all the way down to the very bottom, you're going to see a list of words. So if you scroll all the way down the bottom after you made that search, you're going to find additional keywords right here. As you can see, these are additional keywords, things like military survival kits, survival kit list, best survival kit food, items, etc. As you notice, these are not only different keywords to the search we've made, but here we find out also different types of survival kits for different scenarios and different settings, so that gives us an idea. These are ideas on what we can write an article about when choosing a topic on survival kits, or military survival kits, or wilderness survival kits. So these could be totally different articles. So, now that you have a basic understanding of basic keyword research, let's move on to our 5 important factors. These are number 1, the URL structure, which includes the domain name and the category name, the file name, even the page name. These are part of one URL, as this is what shows up in the address bar at the very top. Whenever you go to any website, you see the domain name, right? Then the page name, and all that in the search bar at the top where the URL is. That is the URL structure. Now, the URL structure is very important because it tells Google and other search engines if you are a brand or you are targeting a specific keyword, or what is your website is about. And that's just one element of the 5 factors. There's a lot of other elements as well. Number 2, we have the body tag structure, which contains basically everything on your post or your page. In terms of content, so this contains both written text that you use in your posts and pages, and there's more than just slapping a bunch of content for everyone to see. There's a lot that goes into this. Don't worry about it for now, as we're going to show you and break things down for you later on in this course. So, you have a better idea of what you should include in your body tag structure. Number 3, we have image optimization. What this means is you'll be making your images more search engine friendly. So just like body text, when it comes to images, Google and other search engines, they are not going to know right off the bat what these images are. So you need to do your best to help them figure out what the images are all about. Now, there are ways that Google will figure out eventually what your images are all about. So don't try to game the system. For example, if you name an image, let's say a military survival kit, the way they figure out if that image is legit or not is oftentimes they'll rank you in the Google image search engine. If somebody types in, let's say, military survival kit, and people see your image and they click on that image, then Google have a better idea of your image. So, don't try to game the system in naming image something that it's not. Name it what it is, so when somebody looks for the image, they're going to find it and they're going to click on it, and that will show search engines you're honest, and it is going to help you in the long run. In fact, beyond that, there's a few more steps you'll need to take, apart from just name it right. Also, remember, image search engine could be great, as you can actually get a lot of traffic from that search engine, but we will talk about it later on. And of course, we have factor number 4, which is title optimization. Basically, it's about how to make your title search engine friendly, because the reality is that your titles do show up in the search engine, so you definitely need to do this right. Otherwise, you're going to attract the wrong person. Number 5 is meta optimization, and it is the same thing here. Metadata that will show up underneath the title in the search engines need to be optimized too, so you want to make sure that you attract the right traffic. Now, we talked about the 5 important factors here in brief. Next, let's dive into every single one of these 5 factors in more depth. Welcome back. This is our lesson number 4, and today we're going to talk about the URL structure. Now, this is something that has changed slightly in the last decade, but it hasn't changed drastically. Now, before we discuss what you should use in terms of a domain name and your URL structure, let's discuss why this is important. You see, when Google and other search engines try to figure out what your website is all about, they look at your website as a whole. They're not just going to look at URL structure or your domain name or your categories or your page name. they're going to look at everything as a whole. Plus, in addition to that, they're going to look at how people interact with your content and if the content is legitimate. Now, part of that is what appears in the URL. A search engine friendly URL structure can actually go a long way. Not only will it help the search engines figure out what your page is all about, it's also going to help a human visitor understand what the page is about. And that means that keywords still matter, but you have to be careful not to keyword stuff your URLs. And by keyword stuff, what I mean is density. When you're putting too many of the same keywords in the same area. Don't do that. And I'm going to show you in just a minute why, if you use certain domain names, that can have a drastic impact. So, let's talk about domain names. You're probably thinking, what should you name your domain name? Should you use an exact match domain, meaning that you will have a main keyword in the domain? Or should you use a brand name? Well, there's a big debate that using a keyword in the domain name will actually get you ranked higher. That actually worked well back in the day, and sometimes it still works today, and there's really no right or wrong answer for this. Literally, at the end of the day, we don't know, it's all up to the search engine. There are so many exact match domains out there, and so many people using their main keywords in their domain names that it actually might help, or perhaps might not. But remember, with SEO, you need to make sure that you don't look at one element, but instead, you look at the website as a whole. So then, having your main keyword in a domain is not going to be as important. So yes, bestsurvivalkit.com can work, but we can't really say for sure. However, I might say, if you haven't noticed, Google really likes brands. Search engines love brands. And the reason why they love brands is because brands are here to stay. If you look at a brand that becomes a culture and it's got an impressive following, then Google will love it, right? Search engines love brands. They normally have a URL like this, yourbrandname.com. Now, Google is quite smart, and it has robots that know that people are trying to keyword stuff or game the system in terms of domain names. However, till now we've had success with brand names, so we lean towards that as a long-term view. But then again, exact match keyword domain names work well for some other people as well. So we can't say for sure if it's not going to work for you. But now, let me reveal to you why using a brand name will actually help you, especially in preventing you from creating duplicate or keyword stuffing in the URL structure. So, for example, the URL structure normally looks like this: www.yourdomain.com/category/your-page. And that your page thing could be anything, depending on how you go about naming that. And I'll show you this in a minute in WordPress. Now, we're just talking about the basic fundamentals. So, let's say for example that you're trying to rank on keyword red shoes. The problem with naming your domain name redshoes.com is this. Let's say for example that you have several categories: red shoes, blue shoes, yellow shoes, and brown shoes. But your domain has that one category, that's the red shoes, and you also have a product called Big Red Shoes. It ends up looking like this: www.redshoes.com/red-shoes/big-red-shoes. So you see what I mean here? You've got red shoes, and red shoes 3 times in a row in the same URL. That's not a good sign, because that's keyword stuffing. To search engines, it looks like you're trying to game the system when in reality you might not be. But let's say for example that your brand name is Fast Feet. Then it will make more sense with the product name Big Red Shoes. Now, I know that's not a great name, but hold on. It will look something like this: www.fastfeet.com/big-red-shoes. So, Big Red Shoes belong to the product name, and Fast Feet is the brand name, or the e-commerce store, or the local store. So by doing that, now you see red shoes only shows up once. That's why have a brand name in your domain instead of main keyword, you have the potential of selling other things. If you just do redshoes.com, you're stuck with only red shoes, right? But with Fast Feet as a brand name, you could cover shoes, you could cover slippers, you could cover socks, you can cover a variety of different products. You could even cover lifestyle of running exercise shoes and all that. So branding not only help you with your URL structure, but it will also help you diversify and expand what your website could potentially be about. Do you see what I mean here and why brands actually help you avoid keyword stuffing? Now, another tip is to make sure that your URL is no longer than 90 characters long. Okay, so first thing first, go ahead and log into your WordPress site. And then what you want to do is access the permalink option to make sure that your URL structure is searchable and search engine friendly. So what you need to do is go to the left-hand side, go to settings, then choose permalinks, and then we'll get to here. Now, at this point, you're going to want to choose post name. Click on post name, then click save down here. And that's it. So what this is going to do is every time you create a post or a page, it's going to title the actual post and page and put it in the URL. However, you see if you choose a numeric option here, then when Google comes to your page, they're not necessarily going to know what this URL is about. They're going to look for the body tags, but in this case, the URL structure is by no means search engine friendly. So as you can see here, the plain version is just P equals 23. As a human being as well, you don't really know what that URL means, so choose post name here and click save. Now, if you go on to a post or a page, or choose to create a post or a page, this is what it's going to look like. So when you create a post and page, like for example right here, this article here that says 10 different places to find credible freelancers online. If you have it here, you want to make sure that it is permalinked. Permalink is the URL structure. So we click on edit here, and now we can see that the URL says 10 different places to find credible freelancers online. So what you want to do is obviously, we can't change the domain name, but we're going to put the title in here, and you want to put dashes in between the words, and when you're done, click on OK. Click update, and that's it. So that's as easy as it gets in terms of editing the URL structure. Now, of course, you can add them into categories. So if you have a category, let's say in this case we have freelancers. The category could be freelancing sites, and then you could have maybe 10 different posts on freelancing sites, so that as a human being, you know that we're looking at this and it's under the category of freelancing, and you can create categories by going under categories and click on add new category. End that there, and then make sure that post or page is checked for that category. Click update, and you're good to go. And that's it. Hello and welcome back. This is lesson number 5, and in this video, we're going to talk about the body text structure. Basically, this is about what you should put in your content, and as you're writing your posts and your pages, how should you optimize it? So, what you write on your blog post and page should be first and foremost definitely human-friendly content, and then of course, secondly, search engine-friendly content. See, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to game the system, trying to make it so search engine friendly that they totally forget about who they are writing to. Google, at the end of the day, really cares about bounce rate, and bounce rate, which we'll talk about later down the road, is basically if somebody stays on your page for a long period of time, or they just come to your page and leave immediately, and Google sees that, and it's not a good sign for them. In fact, if they go to Google and they type in, let's say for example, survival kit, and they go to your page and they don't like what they see, then of course, they go back to Google. They bounce. Google knows that they just left the page, and they rate you based on that. Of course, high bounce rate will actually hurt your ranking. So, if you're merely right for the search engines, you're going to have to deal with the bounce rate. High bounce rate lowers your rating. By rating, I mean how long do they stay or how long do they stick around, and if they don't, that will have a negative impact on you. So, what that means is the longer someone stays on your website, the lower your bounce rate is. So, keep that in your mind. The word bounce rate, the word stick rate, you'll always come up when it comes to on-page optimization or even search engine optimization in general. To Google websites with a lower bounce rate must be good. You know, the fact that people are staying on your page for a longer period of time tells search engines that this website must be what people are searching for, right? And this is important to Google and other search engines, as it also indirectly tells them that your site must have good content, and then they're going to rank you higher. So that's just one of the many different factors that you're going to deal with in SEO. And that said, let's discuss some elements that you need to have in your body text. One important thing is you definitely want to stick to one main keyword, and you have that main keyword definitely in the title of your page and throughout your page. So that keyword should be the same one in the URL structure for that post or your page. I'm going to show you this in a minute. If we hop on over to WordPress, you can use your keyword to name the title, and if everything is set up correctly, the permalink or the URL structure should have that keyword. Don't forget that you should also spread that keyword around. Now, you definitely don't want to make it appear too many times, otherwise it will be seen as keyword stuffing. So it should appear in the page and headings 1 and headings 2, which will be in the body text. I'll give an example later on, when we show it to you in action. Remember, the main keyword should always be somewhere in the first paragraph. It should be bold or italicized, but don't overdo it. There are actually ways to get around doing this and make it look natural. You got to remember that first and foremost, you're writing for the human being. So when you put your keyword in your text, you're going to make sure that it is going to make sense to the human. Then, you want to try to use variations of your keywords as well. So, let's use the example that we talked about earlier in the URL structure video, which was about red shoes. So, you want to try to use variations of the keyword or even synonyms. Google, of course, is smart enough. They have this huge database of words that are related. As far as the body text, let's go back the example of freelancers articles. So, up at the top, if we say that our main keyword is maybe find credible freelancers or places to find credible freelancers, then what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's in the heading 1 and 2. So we could take that and we could put it here, and we could highlight that, and then under this drop box here, we want to do heading 1. So that would be the heading. And then you want to make sure that it's heading 2, but we can do that later. So you want to make sure that the keyword is in the first paragraph. So it says, are you looking to outsource some of your work so that you can focus on your business better? Finding the right person can be difficult, but there are places online where you can search for credible freelancers. Now, let's discuss places to find credible freelancers. So obviously, the first letters are capitalized, as I want to make sure that it's human friendly. And then, you can highlight that. It can be italicized, or it can be bolded like that. So that needs to be in the first paragraph. You can also have it later down the road as a heading. And if we scroll down here, you can see we don't have an image right now, but we'll talk about that later when we'll find an image, and I'll show you how to add an alt tag. You want to do that too. Now, you want to go through this, and you want to create variations of this keyword. So let's say, places to find credible freelancers is Fiverr.com. This is a good place to find great freelancers. As you can see, we use the word credible. You can mix it up and say good place to find great freelancers or hardworking freelancers. So, what I'm saying here is you don't necessarily have to use that exact match keyword, but you're using variations so that Google knows you're not trying to game the system and you're not trying to keyword stuff. But at the same time, it's a variation of your keyword or it's a similar synonym and it appears more natural. We can go through here, we can do other things as well. That's pretty much the basics of it. But Another thing you can do is look at tags as well, so you could add tags to your post. Let's move on to the next video to discuss that. Hello, and welcome to video number 6, and we're going to talk about image optimization today, or in other words, how to make your images more search engine friendly. You see, when it comes to images, you need to tell the search engines what the images are about. They're not really going to know off the bat what the images are. Now, there are ways that Google can figure out the image, which we'll talk about in just a second. You know, maybe one day search engines will be smart enough to be able to figure out what images are about, but right now, you need to help them out just a little bit. Get them a kickstart that they need. First and foremost, when you pick an image, you should insert your main keyword or variations of the main keyword into the alt tag. But if you don't know what those are, please don't worry about it right now. We're going to show you everything in just a minute. Now, what I recommend is, let's say for example that you have 3 images on your page. We should optimize them. Remember, the more images you'll have, the better. You don't want to get too many images, but the more images the better, because images also bring traffic. Next, very important things I'd like to recommend as well is the first image that you have on your page should contain the main keyword in it. While doing so, make sure that your keyword actually relates to the image itself. So, if the image is an image of a shoe, you definitely don't want to put something like a peanut butter sandwich in alt tag. You need to put something that's related, right? For the second image in a row, however, you don't want to insert into alt tag the same main keyword. Instead, you want to put a variation of that keyword. Now, there are other ways that Google can figure out if those are legit images or not. In fact, what they'll do is they'll index them into the Google image search engine, like I've mentioned earlier. So, whenever somebody searches for that image and they click on that image, they will think, okay, those images on your page are definitely legit. Then, Google is going to rank you higher, right? So that is why making sure that your keywords and your images fit and they are accurate enough is important. Now, like I said, more images with variations of the keyword you have, that's even better for your SEO. So, if we're focusing specifically on red shoes as the post itself, maybe it is better to indicate a specific brand name of shoes. You might want to put the brand name, or you might want to put like the brand name plus red shoes. Perhaps you might want to put shoes red, or a red something that's a synonym of shoes. So, to make more sense, let me show you what you need to do on screen, and I'll give you some more tips along the way. Okay, so adding images and making them search engine friendly is actually very easy to do. But first things first, you'll need to find an image if you don't already have one. Let's start where we left off in the previous video. Here, we don't have any images, but let's just go ahead and add one. So I'm going to add one somewhere in the beginning, so we could add an image, let's say here. Now, I want to say we do have an image like a featured image down here. But what we're talking about are images within the actual body text. So, let's go ahead and click on Add Media. And these are existing images that you see here. You can choose one of them, or we can also upload a file here as well. So, let's try to find something that relates to freelancers. So right here it says title, caption, alt text, and description. By default, as you can see here, within an image it shows something like a code. It doesn't look natural, it doesn't tell a human being what it is, and it doesn't tell Google what it is. Beyond just some basic optimization, you have to realize that if somebody is disabled and somebody is listening to some sort of software that speaks out loud, it can read what the images on the page is about. If you used alt text right, then this is actually going to help you reach those kind of people. Alt tag for images provides search engines with a text alternative indicating what the image is about. So, keep that in mind as well, and by making it friendly to all sorts of people, you'll get an extra vote with Google. So, let's say, for example, that this is something to do with places to find credible freelancers. So, all you need to do is simply put that in the alt tag. Now, for the title, you want to do something similar. You can do top 10 places to find credible freelancers. Bear in mind that these images might show up in the Google image search engine, and if you implement this right, the information will show up. So, if somebody is utilizing the image search engine, which a lot of people do nowadays, then they're going to see that image. If your competitors are merely just uploading the images and they're not optimizing it for the alt tags and the titles and descriptions, then you're going to be one step ahead of them. So, caption can be this image, a screenshot of the top 10 places to find great freelancers. You want to mix and match keywords here and use variations so that doesn't look like your keyword stuffing. Then, of course, you can put the description here whenever you're ready. Click on Insert into Post, and there we go. Now, you can always edit that later if you click on the image here and click on Edit. You can always edit the alternative text so the alt tag definitely is optimized as you want that keyword in there. You can put the keyword here in the captions as well if you want to. So we're going to click on Update because I didn't do any updates. And of course, you can add other images as well throughout the page, but make sure first and foremost it is human friendly, and then based on that, you can create variations of the keyword. And of course, when you're ready, go ahead and click Update. That's it for today. And now, let's move on to our next factor. Hello, and welcome to lesson number 7. Today, we're going to talk about title optimization. This is an extremely important topic because it's often the first thing that people will see as they are searching the internet. So, if you go to google.com and you type in a keyword, whatever that is, then you're going to see the titles, and then you're going to see the descriptions for each and every single web site. With YouTube, you're going to see the titles, the descriptions, and of course, the image, which is the video thumbnail. So, based on the media in general, you see they're all going to have titles. Having the right title is important for SEO. So, like I said, this is extremely important because that's the first thing people going to see after search, and you want to make sure that you're ranking on the keyword that is in the title. And then, of course, when you get to your page, you want to make sure that the content fits the title. So, you want to be congruent all the way, starting from what they typed in and what they get as a result. This way, your traffic is going to trust you, and then they're likely to take action if you need them to. So, this needs to be set for all of your posts or your pages, and you really need to think clearly and carefully about titles, because we have seen in a lot of cases where people just name their content with whatever title that comes to their mind. And what ends up happening is you work so hard to create the content, but you attract the wrong person, and they come to your post or page, and you wonder why nobody is taking action, right? To make it easier for you to be congruent, take the main keyword and make sure that your keyword is in your title somewhere, because that's what your viewers are searching for. Now, sometimes people put the keywords straight up in the beginning and they'll put the keyword dash whatever. But what I recommend that you do is you put the keyword in the title and you want to make sure that it sounds right. It's got to be human friendly first, and then of course, search engine friendly. Because at the end of the day, Google is moving towards long-term engagement, towards social engagement, people engagement, and that's what is important to them right now. So, if you think about it, their goal is for people to search and find what they want. So, they want to make sure that they connect you to the right person. Of course, all they really care about is the customer, the one performing search, and not you, right? So as long as you're on the top 10 of the Google search engine for that keyword, and that keyword is appearing in your title, it's highly likely that the prospect will click through your website. Now, as basic as this sounds, I want to make sure that you understand this concept. Most of your competitors are not really going to do this, and they're going to miss something along the way. Because sometimes the title is right, but when people go to the content, it just doesn't make sense to them, and they bounce. So, as long as you're congruent from the keyword to the title, to the post page, to the content itself, to the call to action, to the product, then everything is congruity work together from starting point to the end. This way, you're most likely going to gain the trust of a prospect, and you're most likely going to get the conversion. That's the most important thing here. Now, as a rule of thumb, your title should be no more than 75 characters long. You don't want it to be too long because psychologically, that will actually overwhelm the person typing things in. And remember, most people are just scanning the content and not reading. They're looking for something really quick. So if you have something short, straight to the point, you're most likely going to win as long as it's optimized and it's correct to that keyword. And now that we've talked about the fundamentals, let me go ahead and show you what you need to do to set this up properly. Now, let's say, for example, your main keyword is places to find credible freelancers. Sometimes you'll find people do something like this: places to find credible freelancers, and then, of course, they'll put the keyword first, and then they'll put a sentence. You can do that if you want to. There's no proof that it works or doesn't work. But you definitely want to make sure that your content is human-friendly first. So in this case, our keyword is 10 different places to find credible freelancers online. Or we could do something like this: top 10 places to find credible freelancers. Now, what you should do is, if you change the title here, make sure that it's changed right here as well. So if we want to do that, we go back over here, we just copy that end. But we need to make sure that there are dashes in between the words. So what I'm doing right now is I'm simply adding dashes in between the words. So there we go. And now we clicked OK, and that's it. So as a wrap up, I would say, remember, the title is crucial for SEO. Next, I'll show you where you can find 2 important SEO WordPress plugins with the help of which you can add more data like the metadata, the description, and all that. But for now, by default, if you don't have those WordPress plugins, what the search engine will often do is they'll grab the title. So click update, and that's it. Hi, welcome back. Today, we're going to dive straight in and talk about meta optimizations. This is going to be a short lesson. So, meta is the description that is going to show up on search engines. Just like the title optimization that we've done in the previous lesson, this is what people are going to see in the search when they perform a search for a specific keyword. In other words, it's the description beneath the title, and you need to make sure that this is set up both in your posts and your pages. And this needs to be no more than 160 characters long. So let me show you what you need to do to set it up. Okay, we briefly talked about this before, but I'm just going to do a recap here. We talked about the meta description being important. This is similar to image optimization actually. The description is crucial in images because if images appearing in the image search engine, it will appear with that description and that title. Now, if you don't have a special WordPress SEO plugin installed, search engines typically going to grab this as a title, and then the description usually will be populated with the beginning of first paragraph. So, for congruency's sake, you want to make sure your keyword to appear in the title. The first headline is here in the description, and you usually want to try to put the keywords down here, but you don't want to put it too much to avoid stuffing. Remember, if you have too many keywords, you're going to want to add more text. If you have more keywords, you definitely want to add more images as well. So, the more images, the more text, not stuffed with your specific keyword, the better. Now, by default, it is going to grab this as a description, but if you have the WordPress SEO plugin that we'll talk about in our next lesson, you will have the opportunity to add more metadata, which I'll show you later on. But this is sort of a preliminary video to discuss why the metadata is actually used. Hello, and welcome to lesson number 9. And congratulations, with this lesson, you've reached the end of this course, and this kind of a bonus lesson for you, because we talked about how to manually optimize your WordPress site. Now, we're going to talk about how to automate the process. Now, the reason why we didn't jump straight into this video was simply because you needed to understand why SEO elements are important on their own. Then, use this system to automate everything. The 2 plugins that I'm going to talk about today will be great help for you to automate certain processes, like the URL structure, but at the same time, knowing how things work and why certain things are important is more crucial at the end of the day. So, now let's talk about the 2 SEO plugins. With these 2 WordPress plugins, you can literally boost your on-page optimization. You can get both of them on a free version, and they both have a paid version too. Now, 2 of these plugins are very common. The first one you'll most likely maybe already using. The second one is not so popular, but they actually work hand in hand. So let me go ahead and show you these plugins and mention why they are both important. So, the 2 plugins are, number 1 is Yoast SEO. And if you go in here, you can get a better idea of what it's all about. But this is one of the most popular SEO plugins, and this plugin will actually help you optimize your site automatically. So now you understand the basics of the title, the description, and all that. You are ready to use Yoast. A lot of times, what Yoast SEO will do is if you just create a title and you put that in the title of the WordPress post or page, you click update and it'll automatically fill in the permalink or the URL structure, and it will fill out other data as well as you begin to create your posts and your page. Now that's the free version. The paid version actually takes it one step further and does a lot more. Now, I'm not going to cover all details of Yoast in this particular video because you can go here and check it out for yourself. But if you want to figure out how to install it, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to your WordPress site here and go to Add Plugins under Plugins menu. Type in the word Yoast and you'll see it right here. The second plugin is called SEO Squirrely. So if you type in SEO SQUIRRLY, then you can actually download the plugin. And they also have a free version, which is, in my opinion, is really good. What SEO Squirrely focuses on is schema or snippets. And schema is necessary because that's the way of the future, and it tells search engines what your site is all about and provide even more information than that. But the short answer is it just helps optimize your site in a much better way. When you go to SEO Squirrely's site, it'll say that their plugin is better than Yoast. And then, of course, sometimes you might see an article out there that compares these 2 plugins. You'll see that they're going against each other as competitors, but at the same time, you can either use Yoast or you can use SEO Squirrely. But you can also use them both. What we found over the years that SEO Squirrely focuses on schema, and schema is just a way to make your site appear in the search engines where people will click on your link. Schema is a code, semantic vocabulary, that you put on your website to help the search engines return more informative results for users. So, if you've seen, for example, the 5-star ratings that appear in the search engine that is based on schema, and there's a lot of other different little elements where if you've got on your page, like images and videos and all that, SEO Squirrely will automatically optimize those media types on your page. And we found that you can actually download these 2 plugins together, and they work hand in hand. They can run each other based on the title and the meta description, and they can conflicts in that realm, but at the end of the day, each will perform its job. But if you feel you kind of need to pick and choose which one you want to go with, you can research better and read articles and recommendations. However, from our experience, Yoast, I can tell you, will pretty much do everything that we talked about, and of course, SEO Squirrely as well. It's just they typically are focused on different areas, so my take on that is just install them both and just see what happens and use them both and go from there.